Yeah.
This public work session of the Board of Education for March 4th, 2024 is called to order. This meeting is being streamed live and will be available for viewing on PPS Board of Education YouTube channel. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we are having a work session with Human Capital Enterprises to continue the planning of the superintendent search process. So to start us off tonight, we're going to start with introductions around the room. And then we'll hand it over to Mr. Harris to lead tonight's discussion. And the goal is to be out of here by whatever time I said, 7:30, 7 o'clock.
Let's go team.
All right, so we'll start over with Ms. Roseanne Powell and for introductions. And
Roseanne Powell, Board Manager.
Liz Large, Contractor General Counsel.
Sarah Bradshaw, Executive Assistant.
Andrew Scott, board member.
Eddie Wong, board member.
Patty Sullivan, board member.
Julia Brim Edwards, board member.
Herman Green, board member.
Gary Holland, board member.
Terry Proctor, Communications Department.
All right.
And
Michelle DePass, board member.
All right. All right, you turn it over to Mr. Harris.
Good evening, board. Sorry that I started chatting when I was muted. Good to see you all. Sorry that we are here virtual, but we are here with you nonetheless. Hank Harris, Human Capital Enterprises. I'm going to pass it on to Christy.
Christy Perry, Human Capital Enterprises. Hector.
Hello, I'm Hector Garcia with Human Capital Enterprise. I'm sorry for my computer there.
Hector, you want to pass it to one of the remaining folks on this?
Oh, I'm very sorry. How about Frankie Silverstein?
Hi, I'm Frankie Silverstein. I'm the student board rep.
All right. That's it. It's on you.
Okay, I thought there were a couple more people to introduce. Let's get started. Board, great to be with you. Chair Hollins, can you confirm for me what our ending time is?
We said 7:45.
7:45.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was on our.
You don't have to take all that time.
I think I might though, but I'll remember that. I'll remember that, Chair, Vice Chair Green. So let's jump into the work. One of the most important things I think that we do is at the early stage of a process commit to a time frame. And so our goal would be tonight with our first agenda item to commit to a timeline. Now, the draft that you see did not take into account your personal schedules because we didn't have them when we built them. So we built a draft that would work. And I'd like to walk through it. And there are moments in time when we need, there are a handful of moments in time when we need all board members to be present. So when we get to those, I would like to see if that date will work, and hopefully it will. If it won't, then we need to punt, and we'll take a few moments to figure out what will work instead. Of course, there are things on the timeline that are important for you to know, but don't necessitate your being present somewhere. So for instance, if you look at the timeline, I'll give folks a moment if they don't already have it. We are already up into the third row. I can't see the board closely enough to see if anybody needs more time. So let me know if you need more time. Otherwise, let's jump into this document.
Excuse me, Hank. I don't, is that in our email? I haven't seen it.
It's in board book.
It's in board book?
Should be.
There it is. Sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you. Does anybody need Director DePass? I think that was you. I'm not sure. Do you have it, and does everybody else have it?
I've got to pull it up.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
Are you expecting us to be able to say yes or no tonight about these dates?
That would be.
Yeah,
my
no,
hope.
I'm not doing that at all. My admin isn't here, Ashley, and I'm not gonna lock myself into dates at all. So Roseanne, you'll probably have to connect with Ashley.
I think these are broader timelines around community engagement.
Oh, okay. I just thought he said all of us show up and commit to being at a thing. And no.
Well, let me answer the question, because if we're not prepared to do that, we're not prepared to do that. The intent of tonight was to look at this agenda, and there are certain events that need a commitment from the board to be present. And it was our intention tonight to ask you if those dates would work on your schedule and to have you have a few moments to look through your calendars and so forth. If that's not something that we can do tonight, then we're going to have to find another time to do that. But it's
everybody, it's just me. I can't, I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm only speaking for me, for Herman Green.
So Hank, what are the dates? Which ones are we looking at here?
What are we looking at?
Well, let's get started. Let's walk through them. But if it's only Director Green, if it's only yourself, maybe we can figure out a way to.
I know we will. I know it will. I have every doubt that we will come up with something, Hank. Trust you me. I know we will. I got every confidence in you.
I like your confidence. Thank you, sir. Let's go through this and see how far we can get. We are in the third. I'm going to assume everybody's got it. So I'm going to jump into the third row, which is where we are right now, the planning meeting number 2. Board one-on-ones, I believe, have already been scheduled and completed, I think, with all board members.
You just have one left.
One left. Thank you. Thank you, Christy. And the next row is focus groups. This is a body of work that we talked about at the last meeting, which also does not specifically need board member time at any specific moment. So that's maybe in the FYI category, but that work is already being scheduled and planned and being executed upon. It's a heavy lift. I want to thank my team, and I want to thank your team as well, particularly Roseanne and Liz, as well as the work group of board members who participated on that. The next row is, you'll see I'm moving fast because we've talked a little bit about the overview in the last week, and I want to move toward when might the board need to be present. We'll have some discussions that this next row, agreements / planning around second round interview process, is something that Christy will talk about a little bit later in the agenda, but there's no specific dates associated with that at this moment. Our goal, board, is to open the vacancy window March 15th, which is merely 11 days from now. We feel ready to do that if we can hit all those things above. We're confident we can do that, board, and that means, and so a vacancy window, which may or may not be a term that you're all familiar with, is that's when the applicants can apply. And that's when your consultant team moves fully into recruitment. We're out there talking to folks. We see that, and so that's in blue. You'll see that begins March 15th. On our draft schedule, it begins March 15th and ends on April 19th, a little bit over a month for the recruitment period. As you remember, we talked about at last meetings, because of where we are in the season, we are going to do some degree of overlap between the recruitment window and the engagement period. So the engagement period hasn't ended on March 15th. It's still ongoing. We have a survey that will be going out. Christy will talk a little bit about that later in tonight's agenda. And then we get to the next row, which does require a moment in time that the board would review. It's really the next 2 rows. If you think about, the board would review the next superintendent criteria that we've drafted, and that there would be a meeting on April 9th. That would be a great day if we're able to do that, to have a meeting where there's an adoption of the next superintendent criteria. I do not believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I do not believe there's currently a meeting scheduled. I don't think there's a board meeting scheduled on April 9th. So that, am I right, Roseanne?
Correct. There is no meeting scheduled.
So that would be, and I don't know if we're prepared to do that tonight, but nothing would make me happier if we could commit to a special meeting on April 9th to adopt this next superintendent criteria.
So this is the first date we're supposed to be checking?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yes, please.
It's good with me.
Okay with me.
Me too.
Yep, I can make it.
We don't have a schedule that night,
No.
but like, why not just stick it with
Why
the
not?
Tuesday?
We're
The one before or after?
Oh, yeah, because we're supposed to be in New Orleans. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what day we get back, because I know 3 of us will be in New Orleans during that week. I don't know what,
Four of you actually, because Frankie will be.
yeah, 4,
I
that's
believe
right.
it's, well, on the 8th,
Are you coming back on the
Like,
8th or
why aren't
the
the three
9th?
I
going?
think so.
Huh? Everybody's woke.
We good?
I'll be back. I don't know about,
I don't know if I'm,
Back on the same day.
we coming back on the 8th? What time we get back?
That I don't know about.
The 9th works for me as well, as long as it's after 5:45.
When do you go back, Frankie?
Yeah, you guys, she said she got to do it after 5:45 on the 9th.
This is Council Gracie.
Kara's checking
NSBA.
on some of our flights right now.
Wonderful. Okay.
From there.
Should we?
Hey,
Should we-
can I back up 1 minute? Are we gonna do the superintendent's criteria in 2 meetings? Or 1? That's, I think, a question still, because this
Yeah.
would be when they vote on it, but are we gonna try to do just a work session around it ahead of time?
Yes, we absolutely are. Yeah.
Okay.
In the previous, you're asking, why am I going backwards, right? Why am I jumping ahead and
Mhm.
going backwards? I wanted to land on the April 9th and
Perfect.
then see where we could go prior to that.
Have you all by the end of the day on April 8th?
So we're back in on the 9th.
Spots to go to in New Orleans.
The 9th looks good.
Oh my God.
That is wonderful.
Great food.
Should I press my luck and try to get a start time on the 9th or?
It has to be after 5:45 because of student director Silverstein's schedule.
Actually, the last time it was one of
Okay.
the.
Do you want to recommend it? Do you want to pick a time? Do you want to say 6 p.m.? Do you want to say 5:45?
If she knows better than me.
I can't stand oysters, but like,
Oh.
7 o'clock. She had you out that week.
6.
She has me out.
She gets in it.
Did she have you out because of the,
I'm wondering if she has me out because of New Orleans.
Okay.
I'm gonna message her now.
is it 8 to the 24th?
You're outside the
It's the
country?
antique capital. of
Oh,
Texas.
I'm not doing that because they're at war. I'm not going.
Oh, okay, so you're.
I'm not going.
Okay. That's a great excuse.
European.
Man, I'm not doing it.
Let me ask you more about that.
Yeah, we can talk about that another day, but right now, not happening.
That off the calendar then.
Yeah, that whole trip is off. I was actually gonna talk to you about that after tonight, but since y'all brought it up, yeah, that whole trip is gone.
So it sounds like the 9th is okay with everybody if we do it, say, at 6 p.m.?
Fabulous.
Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, the 9th. Can you guys make sure you put it on the calendar too?
I was gonna say, can you send like
Yeah.
a hold right now to,
I'm doing it right now.
Okay, so the 9th at 6 p.m. seems like it
Free
works for
nights get
everybody.
swooped up quick.
How long?
We need about an hour and a half.
This is just.
I think an hour and a half would be a really spot on amount of time. We'll want to allow for public testimony, which there may or may not be, and then we want to take time to review it accordingly.
Okay.
Thank you, board. That's awesome. That's great. And I'm going to move downward and then back upward. So bear with me. So that will allow us to open the vacancy window April 19th, which is great.
You mean close?
You mean
Close
close
it?
it?
Close. I beg your
Close.
pardon. Hold on. Thank you. Thank you. Just making sure you're paying attention. That will allow us to close the vacancy window on April 19th, and that gives 10 days for candidates or prospects, folks who may or may not be applying, to zero in on, okay, what is the PPS board asking of me? What are they expecting? And that's a good amount of time for candidates to say, okay, this is me. I want to get my application in, or you know what, I've seen what they're asking and I'm not really the right match for them. I'm pulling out. So that's perfect. So that allows us to close the window on the 19th. I want to go backward now for a moment. What we'll do, and as Christy suggested earlier, is we actually would like to have 2 readings. We'd like to have an initial reading where you see the criteria, you might respond to it prior to the 9th. And that doesn't need to be a special meeting. I don't know if you have something scheduled between April 2nd and 9th, but if we could either get something on the agenda between April 2nd and 9th or have a short special meeting, I would say.
Let me check. So we have the 2nd as a whole. We don't have a regular board meeting. So we have what?
Don't we?
It says regular
Oh,
meeting on the
yes,
second.
regular meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about hold for
Those, yeah.
special sessions.
We have a
At 5 o'clock. We don't have anything for that 5 o'clock hold, do we?
Why don't we just
We might have an executive session.
Why don't we just add this to the regular agenda?
Yeah, just put it on.
Right now, we do not have anything at the 5 o'clock.
Okay.
So it'll be 1 hour special
So
meeting.
you guys you want to do it after the board meeting or?
I was gonna say do it as part of the board meeting. I guess if people want to do it at 5, that's fine because it's held on our calendar.
Unless they need more than an hour.
So Hank, can I ask a question? I
Yeah.
mean, we just scheduled an hour and a half vote. Now we're talking about an hour on this to review these criteria. In my mind, this shouldn't be a conversation that lasts more than about 10 minutes. And I guess I'm thinking that we as board members will have seen this beforehand. I guess if someone's got issues, we can raise them. It feels like a lot of time for us to be spending.
Seems like we should have the most time for the meeting before, when we review it. And then
Yes.
when we get to the vote, that should be.
10 minutes.
But then
I would
give
love
myself-
that. I will say in my experience, that doesn't often happen. But if the board's making a commitment to do that, I would agree that certainly could be. And I would agree that the first meeting is maybe where you're going to offer more of your thoughts. But also keep in mind that the 9th is the date when you're going to hear public testimony. And so it's important that you hear that testimony and that you take that into account before your vote.
So we generally limit public testimony to 5. So unless we're going to open it up and do something broader than that, I guess I would say is if we're really relying on public testimony for this, we wouldn't want to do it on the 9th because that's when we're voting.
Yeah.
We'd want to do that as earlier. I guess I'm just flagging this. I guess I'm hoping that we do. I mean, as individuals, we get this beforehand. We can have some conversations with you if we have any issues, so that our public meetings are more of just the pro forma. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to be all in agreement. And if we're not, we can work some of that out.
That we can work it out
And
before we get.
I guess the other thing I'll say is the more, if we schedule the time, we're going to take it. I know my colleagues, so.
Yeah. I think, yeah, what you're getting at is
That is
like
a
being
fact.
more efficient with the sequencing of this and also.
We are way deep in the weeds, way deep.
So one thing,
So when we review for the April 2nd through 9th board reviews, will we have already seen a list?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
we're
You'll
coming-
get that
That's
in
what
your
we've already
packet.
seen, thought about.
I mean, ideally, and it sounds like you are operating on sort of the top level of boardsmanship. I mean, ideally, what we would like is that you've seen it and you've read it. And if we could come on April 2nd with whatever thoughts you have, that would be great. And if you want to insert public testimony at that point too, I think that would be wise. We could, in fact, then have a much shorter meeting on the 9th, but it is important that the public has access. I mean, it is statutorily important that the public has access to it and can give commentary to it. So that's why usually that happens at the second meeting.
So if we're gonna do that, if we are gonna do that, I think I'm with Director Scott. I think we just do it during the board meeting. If we're gonna be having public comments.
the one thing that I would say, in addition to the issues that Hank just raised, is at a certain point then the recruiting team is off, once we've approved it, they're often recruiting. And the next time people are really going to see like who might be in the job is when you have the people who might be in the job. And so one of the most important, I mean, I always felt the important, like people felt like I had a say in like who got selected was helping, giving their input into the position description, because it was like, hey, we went and recruited, this pool of candidates that meet this criteria. And so while it seems like it's just a job description, it's also a really important proof point, because when you hire that superintendent, there's going to be people who like disagree. And it's like, this is the candidate that came closest to that position description that we all talked about, that said this is what we were trying to recruit. So to me, it's more than just a position description. It's also sort of your pact with the community. Like, we're going to go try and find the people who meet this position description. Right. And so just merits some like public discussion and like, here are the 5 main competencies or criteria. So as long as we have time for that.
I would agree with Director Member. I think that's the most important part. So I think if we want to set aside even that extra hour, Gary's over here talking to Roseanne.
Yeah.
But even if that 5 o'clock, which we already have held in our calendar on the 2nd, do that as, we publish the criteria, maybe we open up for more testimony than our normal 5, give people an opportunity. I guess what I'm getting is I feel like as board members, we should come prepared with, I'm fine with the criteria, or here are my suggested changes. We can even give that to you ahead of time.
That's what I was
the
thinking.
Conversation. Let's spend the time hearing from the public on the 2nd.
Yes.
Then we can incorporate anything during that week and then take a vote on the 9th.
That's what I was thinking. If we have questions about the criteria, I don't want to bring that up at the meeting. Let's look at the stuff and get that in ahead of time, so that by the time we get to the meeting, we've already gone through our questions and the changes have been made. So now we can spend more time allowing the public or the community to weigh in on now what they've heard or something like that. I'd much rather do it that way.
So what I'm hearing is we want to do the bigger meeting on the earlier one and then the shorter vote one on the 9th.
Yeah, and maybe use that 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
time so we can.
I understand. So we'll set that 5 o'clock time just to hear public comments for the superintendent search. And we'll post it that way.
Yeah.
So we'll have a whole hour to hear that stuff, and then we can get into we're not voting, and then we can get into our meeting at 6.
And the public will have filled out the surveys by then, right? You will have.
Yes.
Then you'll have a result of what those surveys showed. And that will be presented at that meeting as well?
The surveys inform the creation of that document. So that's what you see. You see the document, which is created through the focus groups and through the survey responses.
Can I ask for clarification? So the 5 o'clock time will be like a preview of the criteria with public comment on the 2nd.
Yeah, so
And then on this, a week later, you will vote on the criteria with additional public comment.
on the
And
2nd, we're
discuss
going
salary
to do a
range.
board review for the superintendent criteria on the 2nd
Okay.
with public comment. And then on the 9th, we will adopt the criteria for the superintendent with public comment.
With public comment.
Because you have to, anytime you vote, you have to have public comment. So, and we'll have a couple, 2-3 slots for that. Okay.
So board, as I think about the conversation you just had in the plan, I think that's a really wise one. And the piece that I want to make sure that we would do is we're going to get you the criteria draft ahead of time. You're going to reflect on it. Public is going to come in and provide testimony. We will still need to hear you say something at that meeting on the 2nd to give us information about how you might want us to revise it, right? And then we're going to bring it back to you with whatever revisions. So I want to be clear, it doesn't sound like it would be purely public testimony. There does need to be some board public thinking, reflection, so that we have our marching orders to come back with potentially a revised document 1 week later. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, Hank, is there any reason why that can't be done individually with us ahead of time just to speed things up, or are you not anticipating having that criteria done before then?
Well, the dilemma is this. If we post a draft in public space and you are then giving us feedback, I'm thinking aloud here, but if you're giving us feedback, but the public is the only artifact the public has to respond to is that an initial draft.
Now, what I'm thinking is how we get to that initial draft. This will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. You can share your early drafts with individual board members, and individual board members can provide you feedback because those are internal advisory communications, and we're simply providing feedback in order to get to the draft. Then you have something that each one of us, not collectively, like we're not talking to one another, we're individually saying, hey, this captures everything I thought, or maybe I want these things.
Okay,
then
I understand.
You got a draft that's maybe 80% there. That's what we publish, get comments on from the public. We have any conversation as a group on the 2nd, hear from the public, make any revisions, and adopt it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Director Scott. That process of going into one-on-ones with board directors is not something that we have. That's not part of a process that we've established, or that we have bandwidth around, or that we've got time to come back and do individual. So it really does need to be in group format.
Yeah, I would also like to build in some time to talk with the other board members.
We can do that on the 2nd.
I was going to say, that's the 2nd. On the 2nd, So if we have everything or close to it by the 2nd, then on the 2nd, as we're hearing public comment, that also gives us an opportunity to hear what the rest of the way I'm thinking, what the rest of my team is thinking about it, maybe areas that they like or dislike or something like that. But for the most part, I'm thinking that for the most part, we're there, right? You know, there may be a few kinks in the armor that we need to tamper out, but for the most part, we might be there. And we're really spending a lot of time listening to what the public has to say about it, because that'll be the one piece that we all haven't heard, and that is what does Joe Public or Susie Public think about what we're putting out? I want to hear a lot of that.
And there will definitely be different points of view, because there'll be people like standard based, there'll be like high levels of accountability, tight, loose. I mean, there will be, I think, some significant disagreements within our community over what we should emphasize. And
Yeah, and we should listen to it, and we have to make the decision.
And the survey that you're doing, the raw data,
You're right.
is that going to be available to us as well?
The survey data is typically not given to the board. Once we give it to the board, that becomes a public document. That's typically not something that we would advise.
We'll get the analysis, I guess.
All right, I think I'm good with whatever we're ready to go.
so we're doing the 2nd and the 9th. And Kara's already sent us.
Yeah, she's on it.
She's on top of it.
She is on it. Only thing left, we just need to say yes, and she's expecting that tonight. So I just want y'all to know that.
All right, do we have a plan? We have a plan up till the 19th?
Yep.
So far,
Okay, so
Sorry,
this is where it
I
gets,
just have
this
a-
is,
We're
Yeah.
gonna get whatever the materials for the 2nd, sometimes a couple days beforehand.
yes, 100%.
Yeah, they're working all spring break, right?
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Let's look past the 19th. So the 19th, the window closes. As you recall, when we went through this last time, the first process is that the consultant team reviews and selects some number of candidates for preliminary interviews. And those candidates who get preliminary interviews also get preliminary reference calls. On April 27th, this is not a date that I necessarily need every board member to commit to. This is the start date by which you would have access to the applications. And you would have, starting that day and for the ensuing days, the opportunity to review whatever number of applications you care to review. And that would bring us to the very next date that we'd like to be able to hopefully commit to tonight, which is your slate meeting. That's the meeting. It's an executive session where the board comes together. It's just the board and the consultant team. You've reviewed some number of applicants, some of you maybe more than others, and you're going to make a decision as to whom you want to invite for a first round interview. And so is it possible? We did great on April 2nd, April 9th. Is it possible to look at May 1st and see if that, I think I already heard was that a yes?
We have a board budget hearing and budget workshop session on the 1st.
Well,
So the question is, do you guys want to add on to that meeting?
What about the 30th?
well,
Because
I-
that's
I-
another
I-
Tuesday that PPS hasn't taken up.
I would say it doesn't give us enough time. I mean, the 4 days is kind of tight to review, depending, I don't know how many applications or candidates we'd be reviewing. But does that give us enough time to prepare for our other meetings?
Probably be 10 candidates more if we want. But
That's a great question, because would we actually, on the 27th, which is a Saturday, have it in the morning? Because if we've got, I mean, for me, those are Saturday and Sunday would be the only days I'd have.
Me
I know
too,
that's not.
me too.
yeah, I don't even talk to me about Sunday. Sunday can't even come up in conversation with me. So don't put it out there, or at least expect me to be there.
But you could look at the things on Monday.
Monday, I'll talk to you.
I just like to build in time to do review, and it usually takes me longer than not. Feels like a tight time.
I got
Tight
the
turnaround.
82nd Avenue parade that morning.
Oh, that's such a great parade. I love that parade. You gonna go wave? You driving a convertible?
So if the first sounds like the first is not an option, and the 30th, does that sound too soon to you, Director DePaz?
It does.
Okay. I think we could go as late as May 2nd. Actually, you know what? Actually, let's hold this. Let's hold this question and move to the next row.
Yeah, I can't do May 2nd. I can't do May 2nd. That's my my gala, which you're welcome to purchase a table at.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to recommend May 2nd. Let's move to the next row and then we're going to come back. We're going to come back to the slate meeting and let's talk about where the first round interview is. The first round interview board is the longest, the biggest chunk of time that you'll be committing in the search. We usually do one really robust, adrenaline-filled, wonderful day, and we usually start at breakfast and we usually end at evening. Little dinner time. That's the kind of day we look at. And so we threw May 6th out there. Is that potentially a day that all 7 board members could clear their schedules and participate in a day of first round interviews?
We have
Yeah.
a student
I'll
success
be here
meeting,
that
but we
day.
can probably change it.
Yeah, we could reschedule.
Jury duty.
some-
Happy to put it off one more time.
Yeah, I won't be here.
What happened? May
You won't
6th.
be here, you guys? What about the 10th?
Call in.
10?
The Fridays are a lot easier for me than Mondays.
Oh, it's
Really?
Friday.
Mondays are my day. That's so funny.
Well, we have a board meeting.
Everybody has a Sabbath.
Yeah, me and Andrew have the opposite. No Mondays.
I'm hearing different dates
I
thrown
can
out.
possibly do the 10th.
We have a board meeting on the 7th. Could
No,
we
he's
use the
talking
board
about
meeting
all
for
day.
that?
That's all day.
Not a
All
board
day.
meeting.
I'm
I'm
here
hearing
all day.
Friday.
I'm
would
Making
work
me take a
for me.
vacation.
just around May 10th. Is May
Yeah.
May
Oh,
10th?
I can't do the 10th. I have my A push exam.
Oh. What about the 11th? How about Saturday? No, nobody said Saturday.
Oh, I would do Saturday.
We do a Saturday.
I
That
can't.
works for me.
Oh,
Unless
it
you want my
can't.
daughter to be there with me all day.
She
Well, that's
might-
a long day.
This is the problem with weekends, right? You guys are on opposite days, right? So
No, Saturday.
I'm not doing the Sunday at all. At all. Like,
don't have
not
a,
even a part of it.
You don't have a co.
What about the
Oh, I got 4 pastors in the church technically. I'm
What about-
just not gonna do it on a Sunday.
What about the 13th?
Someone's out of town on the 6th, right?
well, yeah, I don't know what was going on. I mean,
So we
Mondays are
said
just
Monday doesn't work,
Monday
right?
tough.
For some reason.
That's the 13th, though, isn't it?
No, I mean the 6th. Nobody.
Hank, can you remind me? This is interviewing how many people?
This would likely be interviewing 5, maybe 6 candidates.
It's all day then.
But it's all day.
Okay.
This is the first.
And that's on, we're looking at
Do 2 evenings?
May 3rd. I mean, Monday the 13th, I don't see nothing right now, but this makes me so nervous.
I don't have
I just
anything
know
on the
I'm gonna get
calendar
in
on
trouble.
the
I
13th.
know I'm double booking something
Very good. Don't have to do that.
because I don't even see.
If May 13th works, let's do May 13th. It will push, it will push your announcement out into June, but it's super important that all board members are participating. So if that's what we do, that's what we do. Is the 13th a day that appears to work?
Not ideally. I mean, can we take a step back with the board? We're talking. I mean, Hank's talking about one full day. How do people feel about breaking it into 2 evenings, starting from like 4 to 7?
That would be insufficient, Director Scott. This is a good 10 hours of work, maybe even 11.
Okay. Well, some of us may. I then pick a day, and I'll let you know if I can do it or if I'll just step back from the interviews. So, I mean, I'll do my best, but if we're not able to do them on the weekend, we're not able to do them in the evening.
Well, can I ask another question though? Are we doing these virtual with candidates or are they in person?
We are doing them virtual. They could be on consecutive evenings. I don't want people to think it's from 4 to 7. You'd never get through them. You could do them on consecutive evenings from 5 to 10. But it is.
Explain why we need 10 hours
But then we're interviewing people.
for 5 people.
And I was gonna just follow up that with that same thing, that we're interviewing them at 1 a.m. potentially.
Not at 7 o'clock.
Well,
Folks,
let's,
we've never interviewed folks at 1 a.m. We, as I said, we usually start at breakfast and we usually end at evening, and it's a long, robust day. We don't interview at 1 a.m.
Hank, can you walk through why we need 10 hours to interview 5 people? I mean, I want to be really clear. I want to be there. I want to do everything I can to be there, but you're asking for a massive chunk of time to interview 5 people. So I'm just, what's happening during that 10 hours? Like, are the interviews, I mean, these are 45-minute interviews, hour-long interviews, 2-hour interviews? What are we looking at?
They are typically right around an hour, sometimes 55 minutes, sometimes an hour, somewhere right in there. There is a 30-minute or so, 30 to 40-minute debrief time where you're reviewing each candidate on their own merits. Breaks are built into the day, and we interview each candidate on their own merits after they interview. At the end of the day, we have a summative discussion where you reflect as the first time, the only time of the day that you come together and say, okay, we've interviewed these 5. And I say 50, 55, 60, because we don't know if it's 5 candidates. We don't know if it's 6 candidates. Sometimes people want 7. So within that range, let's say it's an hour interview. Let's say it's a 30, 35-minute debrief, which is not a lot of time for a 7-member board. People need a lunch break. People need little stretch breaks. We have never had a board not do that. We certainly can adjust. If this board says they don't want to spend that amount of time, we can certainly adjust. This is how we've done it every time, and with success.
I'm just gonna say I definitely do, because I look at this as like, we're gonna meet somebody twice that we're gonna hire to lead the district. And to me, that seems like Nike would have never hired somebody after 2 interviews. So I would want to have a full opportunity to interview somebody, get a sense of, I mean, you know, maybe they have 10 questions, they screw up 2, but like they knock the other 8 out of the park. If you have a much smaller amount of time, I think you get a more shallow look at the candidates. So for me, I'm not even super comfortable with just 2 interviews by the board. So I don't want to condense the time down. I also think, I know the pool shrinks, so you actually want that first round to be larger than, because there may be some people who exit themselves out. And then if you didn't do somebody in the first round, it's hard to add them back in. I'm not wild about losing a work day, but I also think we need the time to meet the candidates that we're potentially going to bring to Portland.
Saturday is the only day we can figure out. I can figure something out. Colin's going for grandparents or something.
Which Saturday was that?
The 11th, I think.
Okay.
yeah, it was the 11th.
11th.
The 11th for first round interviews?
Yeah, I would be in favor of doing them along, taking the full time on one day if possible as well during working hours.
Yeah, I prefer Mondays, but
Look at mine now.
No matter what, it's a day off for.
The 22nd through the 29th.
I think Andrew can't do Monday, I think.
Oh, I mean, I can. I just,
You don't want to take a day off work, yeah.
Yeah, I would have
And,
to
I mean,
take a
you
day
know,
off.
Never could.
I have to move a lot, but.
I'm the only one in.
Gary, did you say you're out of town on the 6th?
Yeah, and I might be out of town on that. I have to go check. I gotta go check myself. I might be out of town that 11th, 9th, 10th, and 11th as well
of May.
of May. That's right when college NCs and stuff is. So if she makes it, then
Oh, wow.
I won't be here.
Yeah.
You said definitely on the 6th.
Yeah, I'll be out of town on the 6th.
What about the 13th?
I could do the 13th.
I can make 13 work. I'm gonna give you a problem later though on your second to last and last line, especially that last line. Actually,
The 20th.
And hold on, let's get to that line first.
Let's take them one at a time.
Yeah, let's
There
get to
might
that
be
line
a problem.
first.
Yeah, let's take them one at a time. Are we on May 13th? I'm not in the room, so I need somebody to help me. What day are we looking at now?
right now I think we're talking about May 13th.
Can everybody do May 13th?
Yes.
Hold on just a second. I'm on the wrong month.
Hold on.
So that's
So Monday.
Yeah. I have a bunch of work stuff that I've got, but I can cancel it, reschedule it.
So is Monday works for everyone?
The 13th so far.
Great.
I'm gonna make it work because I need to make a couple of these days work for the inconvenience I'm about to cause.
Eddie, Patty, Michelle?
Fine.
Yes, that works for me too. The 13th.
Okay, 13th. That is awesome. Thank you, board. And before we get to Director Green, I want to go back to Director DePass because I think we've solved your problem. Since with the first round interviews are now on May 13th, I think we have much more flexibility around the date of that slate meeting.
It's luxurious.
So the slate meeting, the first was not a good day. The second and third are not good days for us. Excuse me. This would be about a 90-minute executive session to determine first round candidates. Because this is a virtual interview, we're not looking at, having people buy last minute plane tickets. There's none of that. And because we're committing to dates ahead of time, candidates will know well in advance that if they're invited for a first round interview, it will be on May 13th. But we want to give a little time to just build the schedule, get things taken care of. So I would say if we could have a slate meeting, which we can do virtually, if that works for folks who might be out of time, if we could do that May 6th or 7th or even 8th, that would be great.
In the evening?
Whatever works for you.
And
We
that's
have a board meeting on the 7th, and we have the TSCC hearing at 5. That's the 7th. Shoot, was that it, Nisha?
What about the 8th?
8th, we don't. May, right? We're talking about May.
We're still in May.
What about the evening of the 6th?
Hold on. We don't have anything on the 8th. Hold on, we go back to the 6th.
In the evening. After she's
Oh,
thrown.
no, I'm out of town on the May.
But it can be virtual.
I ain't gonna be virtual.
My man.
Actually,
My man.
I can't do the 8th in the evening.
Okay, so. And how long is this slate meeting gonna be?
If you're as, what's the word that Director Scott used? Was it efficient? If you're as efficient with your time as I think you will be, I think 90 minutes is enough time.
We can always do it after the board meeting on the 7th.
Works for me.
On the 7th?
So are we making sure the board meeting ends at 9?
That works.
We don't have to
Yeah,
take.
you don't want to be super tired coming into this meeting. We could do 9 o'clock, but you don't want to be super tired coming into it. So
Is there a reason we don't do it on the 6th? Do you have anything that
I'm not here on the 6th.
Oh, you're not here, sorry.
Well, we'll just make sure the board meeting doesn't have much else in it.
Nothing
Right.
going on the week before our local option?
So are we at May 7th?
What about the 3rd?
I can't, unfortunately, I'm not available on the 3rd.
Oh, see? I was going to say the 3rd too. I'm lying. I'm lying.
What about the 2nd?
What about the 4th?
The
Saturday?
How about the 2nd? That works. The 2nd works? That Thursday?
No, that's Herman's.
May 2nd is my gala.
I'm protecting you.
Yeah, but we can do it earlier, can't we?
Yeah, where's the invitation?
Yeah,
Mine must have been
I
lost in the mail.
Y'all should have got it. Every one of y'all should have got it. Y'all should have got the 3. Oh,
How about a morning? Would a morning work on the 2nd?
No, I have a commission meeting.
Well, why not just go ahead and do it on the 7th? Make it right after the board meeting.
let me see.
There.
We'll just be tired, that's all.
Yeah.
Well, too tired to do it.
Are you out of town the 5th or the, no,
Well, they got a church on Sunday.
or the
It's kind of a long one. It says where there's a TSCC hearing from 5
Yeah.
to 6, and then there's a board meeting.
Then a board meeting.
You want, somebody mentioned the 4th, Saturday the 4th in the morning. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
It's a great idea. Serious.
I like that idea.
I could do it.
I can do it.
Is it virtual? Because unless y'all want Eddie's daughter to be running around.
Well,
It's not all day.
Pick the best
She's not a
Is
runner.
it a virtual meeting?
We can do it, we can do it
Trips off.
virtual. If it's virtual, I'd want us all virtual so we can really see each other. Is that what you're suggesting?
Run here.
No, maybe, hold
Run
on.
here.
Yeah.
Eddie, can you do virtual or?
virtual.
I'll figure it out.
All right, so we can do it in person. Shoot.
But make that if you're gonna take one of my Saturdays, you only get one.
I hear that, preach it.
So I'm sorry, did you say in person on the 4th? Or virtual on the 4th?
Whichever one, I don't know what you had it as, virtual or
We
in
can go
person.
either way. We can go either way. I would just like us all to be either virtual or all of us in person.
All right, would
I-
you guys,
I-
if it's gonna be Saturday morning, would you guys wanna do virtual?
Yeah, why not?
Saturday
Okay.
morning on the 4th?
What does slate meeting mean? Or that's when we review the applications?
That's when you make decisions. You've already reviewed the applications and you're coming together to make decisions about whom to invite for first round interviews.
Okay, so let's do that virtually on the 4th.
Great.
Can I ask what time is the morning? Did I miss that?
What time
After
works for
9.
you guys?
After 9 is good.
After 9, Patty, Andrew,
I would prefer. Well, it has to be Saturday morning.
Saturday.
Me too. It was like
So
2
nice.
o'clock.
Um,
I just was like, I kept saying,
after 1 would be easier for me, but if it has to be a hell day for me, let's just make it a hell day.
you say after 1?
Would be easier for me, but I don't.
Would that be easier for everyone else if they could
Works
do
for me.
after 1?
I'll awake by then.
What day is this? May
In
4th?
Adam pajamas.
Andrew, you good with that?
What's it, that Saturday?
At 1?
Yeah.
I'll get good with y'all.
okay,
You good,
Okay, 1
Michelle?
o'clock?
yeah, 1 o'clock.
All right, so do 1 o'clock
Wonderful.
on May
1
4th.
o'clock and virtual. Is that right?
Virtual, yeah.
Virtual. Fantastic. Okay, board, we are making good progress. So May 4th is our slate meeting at 1 o'clock. Our first round interviews are on May 13th, all day. And then we come to the second round interviews. And Vice Chair Green, I'm going to head off your disappointment because we can't possibly do them on the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, sir.
Add 24 and 25, and I think we're winning because I'll be in Jamaica.
I'm going to add them for you because we need 2 weeks between first round and second round interview.
Look at that.
We
Look
need
at
that. So we worked around Jamaica. I love it. Somewhere in there is Memorial Day weekend, which is also not a great time to do interviews.
27.
I can't do it that weekend.
No, right, which I think is probably the weekend of May 26th, 27th anyway. So we'd be looking now at somewhere between, well, here's what I would like to propose is that the week of May 28th, I say 28th, which is a Tuesday, because I think Memorial Day is the 27th.
It's the 27th.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'd like to propose that the week of 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st is when you're doing your final interviews in person. Now, the good news is you're not spending full days like you did on the first round. You're spending a chunk of time. Typically what you'll do is you'll meet one candidate per evening or one candidate per afternoon. So we'd be looking for round about a 3-hour block of time. We don't have to decide that right this minute. I don't want to spend right now deciding exactly what time. Really, I just want to know is can the board commit to those days being days where there will be interviews or where you will find some chunks of time. For instance, if somebody's traveling, that's not going to work. But if that's a pretty regular week and people can block out their evenings or their afternoons or something, then I will call it good for tonight.
I'm going to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the day. I have commission meetings I have to go to. And on Wednesday night, I have something. I mean, it's just hard because it's right in the middle of budget season.
We already have executive session on.
We have the All-Star Awards on the 30th.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the All-Stars.
Yeah, the All-Star Awards, and I'm going to Franklin for a lunch.
Between lunch and All-Star Awards?
so it sounds like the week of the 28th is out.
The 28th is out evening.
Well,
I'm with you, but
I'm just saying
everybody has to be
Tuesdays.
there.
I think maybe we need to skip the All-Star Awards in order to hire a superintendent.
Oh, really?
You know?
Yeah.
I just want to be, I don't know.
Student-facing fun things.
Yep.
I mean, I would be willing,
I'm
I
an
go
Andrew,
every
yep.
year, by the way. I would be willing to not go this year, but I love seeing the kids, so.
I mean, they would probably understand if we did.
I mean, I could be free on the evenings
Yeah,
of
they
the
don't-
29th, 30th, or 31st. I cannot be free during the day on those days.
So I feel like as a board member.
So the
how it's
evenings
important for them
of
to be
those?
decision makers
Like
themselves.
the 29th, I'm out.
I know there's a lot of convos going on. We're trying to track it. Does the 29th, 30th, 31st
But we're
evening?
trying, we're trying to figure that out right now.
Okay.
We'll let you know. Give us a minute.
The
Yep.
29th does not work for me in the evening.
Is that an extra board meeting date?
So we're
The
all supposed
28th
to
is, but it's
Wednesday's
a
the
special
29th.
meeting on the 28th.
second round of interviews.
Oh, that's just a hold on the 28th?
Yeah,
Well, then we can-
is that an
why
actual
don't we
work
do it?
session?
Yeah.
I think it's a hold right now.
I think it's a whole for.
You know, 'cause
Yeah, it's
Special
hold for a
session.
special meeting, it says.
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
Yeah, let's just
And
grab
there's a,
that.
there's a
Yeah.
hold at 5 and at 6.
That was very insightful, whoever grabbed that.
At least for one.
That's the 28th,
And that,
29th.
did you say that, Hank, that's in person?
Yes, for sure. Final interviews, yep.
What about, what's wrong? Is
And
anybody
it
on the
would take, what,
27th?
a couple of hours each one? Is that what you're thinking?
27th is Memorial Day.
Oh, it's
I would say 3 hours
3 hours.
is what you need.
And we'll have probably 2 to 3 candidates by then? Is that what you think?
So these are second interviews.
We could definitely do one on the 28th.
We need to knock them all out.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should just narrow it down.
What about 30, 31 in the first then? That's
Well,
a
that's
Thursday,
another-
Friday, Saturday.
That's another Saturday, but Eddie. It's another Saturday for Eddie though. He already gave you guys
He
one.
did give us one.
He said we
I think
only got
well,
one.
that Saturday's June 1st, right?
The evening of the
Yes.
30th works for me.
I think I can do June 1st.
So we got the evening of the 28th, the evening of the 30th.
Um,
You wanna
now
just-
let's double check
Full
June
vote?
1st might be the first graduation.
What about maybe the morning of the 29th?
Or Friday, what about the evening of Friday, the 31st?
That works.
3 days, 20.
So 28, 30, 31? How about that, everybody?
Say that again, say it again.
28, 30,
30th.
and 31,
And 31.
Yeah.
Evenings.
all in the evening.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we have
28, 30, 31.
We're still holding our breath, Hank. Just,
Hold on, just a
we're
minute.
still holding our breath over here.
I like it. I like it.
Hold on, let's go back. I'm just curious. Can we go back up a little bit back to the preliminary interviews? Well, I'm sorry. My wife just texted me saying a certain date that we're out of town, so.
Hey, you don't
She
play
just-
with
She
it.
literally just texted me. She's at home because evidently she's watching, so at least I know she's watching.
I was just gonna ask if she was watching.
Yeah.
You better not come in on the 22nd.
She like, hold up, player, hold up.
So the preliminary interviews with the consultants, we're not doing anything with that, are we?
No, sir. No.
Oh, great, then I'm good. Okay. 'Cause I'm
Okay.
going 25th to the 30th.
So May 13th
Checked
still
it
works.
today.
Gary.
Oh, we're good. We're good. Let's move on.
Okay,
back
and we
in it.
got,
We're
We've
back
got-
in it, so now we're back to the 28th, the 30th, and the 31st. In the evening.
evenings.
That works for me.
It works for Julia?
Works
It can
for
work
me.
for me?
Yeah.
Everybody say that?
28, 30 and a half.
Yes, let's move on. Yeah.
28, 30, 31st, all in the evening. And
you are amazing.
thank you, Andrew, for coming up with these weird days. He's looking at the calendar weirdly.
All right, guys, it's 7 o'clock. Well, 7 o'clock.
I know.
7.
It's now taken
It's
longer
almost
to do our
7.
calendaring than it is to interview a candidate.
All right, team, we have
What
one.
time?
Hold on. What time in the evenings?
We need a time.
I would love to start at 6 p.m. if we could do that.
6 to
And-
what, though?
I would love to keep you till 10, but I know you won't let me. So how about 6 to 9:30?
I'll say more like 6 to 8.
Who's having food?
You want to start at 5?
We'll get you food.
Can we start? We can start at 5.
Yeah.
Oh.
We
No,
can
what
push
about
it start
Frankie?
Hold
Frankie?
on, hold on. What, we can't start at 5?
No,
Okay. 5:30?
5:30 I could do.
Okay. Does that work for everybody, 5:30?
Yes.
Frankie? Student Director Silverstein.
Yeah, I think that should work.
Okay.
5:39 then?
So like 5:30 to 7:30?
I'm afraid 2 hours won't be enough. You want to prep for the
Eight?
5:30 to 9:30.
Yes,
Oh,
and then
I-
if we get done early, we can go.
Good. Yeah.
How about 5:30 to 9? Can we do 5:30 to 9?
Okay.
Okay.
Hold on, hold
What is
on, hold
tripping,
on.
man? What is happening?
Y'all tripping. Hold on. 38. 30. Okay, I think I can.
What did you?
I got stuff to do in the evening.
His TV show is on,
Yeah,
and he's in a new episode. And
Whatever.
Sorry, I can't do that.
That's literally the exact time, too.
Are we still got some?
All right, we'll do 5:30 to
No
9.
excuse anymore. You postpone it.
I know.
5:30 to 9. You got that, Hank?
I do. Great. We got one last date. Are we good on that? Are we good on?
So far,
Okay, we got one
Kara's
last.
clocking and sending out invites as you say them. So
Yeah.
we all got a bunch of yeses to click in on here in just a moment. So
You guys are amazing. Amazing. All right. So I want you to picture it's now May 31st. You've just completed your final interviews and it's late on the 31st at 9:30. It's no time to deliberate around who your next superintendent is. We need to find one more thing on the calendar. Shortly after the 31st, it doesn't have to be the 1st. And I know it can't be the 2nd because that's a Sunday, but we need a couple hours of dedicated time for your final deliberation about who your next superintendent is going to be. And so as soon after May 31st, as is humanly possible, we should do that. So that could be the 1st, if that's possible. I don't know if somebody said they couldn't, or it could be the 3rd, but we don't want to wait too long, 3rd of June. Why don't we look at June 3rd first?
All that, sorry, all that week is graduation.
Hold on.
Graduations start on June 2nd, so I would recommend
Yeah.
not June 2nd to like June.
What you're saying is graduation starts on June 2nd.
Okay.
so
Is it possible to do a lunchtime meeting?
June 1. What is that, Saturday again?
Breakfast.
It's my favorite meal to get out.
Second starts at
Yeah. Is there any time of day on June 1st we could do it?
June 1st.
That's-
Saturday.
That's the last thing, though. It's the last Saturday that we will be committing to this. It's the last day we would have to deal with this. We would just be crunching out 2 hours to say, do something, Hank, do something, get us somebody. So we're
picking that person.
all right. Well, then we would be coming in on June 1st and say, this is the name. We got to go. This is going to be the shortest breakfast ever.
So, since my daughter made a minimum number of meetings, she gets a vote, right?
She she should definitely have a vote.
We need the student voice.
Exactly. Between her and student director Silverstein, we'll probably actually get somebody decent.
Yeah, good age range.
So no, everybody's looking to see if
So a Saturday morning?
everybody's trying to see if June 1st works.
It does work for me.
First day of Pride Month.
I can do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can figure out. And how long's the meeting again? 3?
Just a couple hours.
Couple
they say.
hours.
Just a couple hours.
Or less.
For some eggs and sausage.
You good? You good?
Yeah, hold on.
I can do it. But with breakfast, somebody's having breakfast because I was just there the night before. It's been a long
Yeah.
week. Somebody's
Love it.
providing breakfast and a good breakfast, not one of them cheap ones.
What-
Not
hold
that
on.
continental
Cheryl's
stuff.
on, Cheryl's on 12.
What time? What time?
Oh, yeah, that's
What
good.
time? What time
Grits
on
and
the
gravy.
1st?
Yes.
What time in the morning?
It has to be after
9.
9.
After 9.
So 9:30.
Okay.
That works.
All right. So 9:30, 11:30.
Fantastic.
Hank,
Great. Yes.
Hank, I have a question. Just given that's all very condensed, so say we have 2 or 3 candidates that we're interviewing, I don't know, on the 28th, the 30th, the 31st. Are we gonna have them sign, like all the finalists sign something? So that we can do the background check, so that when we have that conversation about who we're landing on, that they've already had their initial background check done?
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Now, as you might recall, background checks are being done by the district, but 2 weeks is typically plenty of time for, when we typically do the background checks with a third-party partner, and 2 weeks is plenty of time. But what your question is, I think, is, are we going to have those background checks before we deliberate? And I'm going to say, we can't deliberate until you have those background checks. So yes.
That's what I
There's
just
no
want to
pur-
make sure that, so we build that into the timeline if the district's doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just so that we have, even if we have to we're doing them on multiple candidates, so that they're all done.
That would be nice to have.
1,000%. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to deliberate before those are completed.
So we might want to start doing that around the first round, right?
Exactly right.
So that first round, folks, we should probably just go ahead and just background them.
Yeah,
So
Well-
5 or 6.
It took,
Is
I
there a
think,
cost for that, or is it?
Oh, I'm sure.
it took like 3 days
It's like $100 a
for
person.
Sandy. No, it's like 4K.
What are we looking for?
That's why that's
Well,
why
it's a very-
asking.
Them, they're doing it.
You totally want to do it. I mean,
So,
$4,000.
Okay, we could come back on when we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
Per person.
here's why I was
Because they
asking.
cheat.
All right,
They
so,
go
hold
back
on,
and
hold
look
on, you
every
guys,
time.
we can come back to that.
Okay.
We don't have to discuss that right now.
My
I'm
goodness.
just saying, y'all, it's 7 o'clock. We got a half hour.
Man,
Yeah.
what-
We do have,
What's
if
next?
we're good, I'd love to, we have another number of agenda items to get to. We won't get to them all tonight, so we will need to come back and visit with you one more time, and we'll figure when that can be. But there are some items that are maybe more time sensitive than others on our agenda. And I know 7:45, we want to have a stop time. So if you'd look at your agenda, I think we want to hit number 2, and I think we want to hit number 5. And I think we want to hit 6 and 8, which are both, I think, fairly. Here's what I'm going to recommend that we do, and I'm going to turn it over to Christy. I think that we can do 5, 6, and 8 in a reasonable amount of time, Christy, and then go to number 2. And then whatever pieces we don't finish, we'll come back to another meeting and wrap those up.
Okay. So agenda item number 5 is related to the superintendent's salary, and we'll need to land on a salary range that we put in the posting, and you'll need to deliberate about a salary range in public. So human capital can get you salary ranges of superintendents in Oregon, but we don't have the ability to get some outside of Oregon. We can get you Salem, Kaiser, Beaverton. We could add Hillsborough if you wanted, but and we can bring those to you to a future meeting to talk about salary. But as a board, you need to decide, are there other places you want to look at salary? And can that be something you can ask the district or HR to do on your behalf? So I'll just open it up for discussion.
I have a question. So would we not use comparables with other candidates not in Oregon, or are we just going to keep it local?
That's a question for you. Our recommendation would be that you do look at some other comparables outside of Oregon. We just don't have the ability to do that. So you'd need to direct the district to begin that work for you.
Yeah, last time we did like peer districts, like comparable size districts around the country, and in districts where we thought were like comparative size, primarily on the West Coast. And then we also had like an Oregon mix as well. And I think we got the information from Council of Great City Schools, and we had like a 2-person board work group that pulled it together. I can forward what we did last time.
I know that HR at various times has updated a chart for different contract renewals, so I think there's a running start to this work outside Oregon already.
So yeah, let's just pull that. Let's just pull that
So
chart
we
that
have
we
one
did.
already. There's one in place, right?
We had one in 2021 when we were doing the contract
Yeah.
extension.
My only caution is that sometimes those comparables are hard to do depending on how contracts are structured. So, Hank, do I hear you saying that human capital you don't have a database
We don't keep a database. It was not part of our proposal to do the compensation study, but we do think it's important that you have a compensation study.
Yeah, it's really important. Yeah, I know we have something which is great. I just want to make sure we actually take the time, because sometimes what shows up on the page is the salary. Once you then look at all the other incentives and
Benefits.
housing allowances and car allowances, it can be very different between contracts.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, but my recall is it's pretty detailed by category, which doesn't mean it's got some differences that we need to pay attention to, but can resurrect that.
So, and this gets into like just the base contract, what we've done, well, I think for the last 3 superintendents since 2000 is have a pretty straightforward contract. So they got the same benefits as other senior administrators. And then, so really what you're looking at is salary, and then if they're in Oregon, like how their pension, or out of Oregon. But there wasn't a lot of other things that we added on. So it was mostly salary. And
I think, sorry.
Relocation and then.
Yeah, that's pretty
fringe.
standard.
I want, if I can, just distinguish between 2 things around contract. One is the negotiation contract that you end up negotiating with your finalist at the end. And that's going to include a whole lot of maybe not, smaller kinds of things like mileage reimbursement and cell phone and vacation buyout. However, earlier in the process is when you're going to establish really the salary range. And if you're a prospect for the Portland Public School Superintendency, you're not at that point looking about, is there mileage reimbursement? Or you're probably not even looking too much about relo, although you might ask in general. But you are looking at, hey, I make $325,000 a year right now. Is PPS going to be an increase or a decrease or about the same? And so for this part of your process, I'd be staying big picture. What are salary and maybe TSA, kind of that combination? What does that look like in like districts that you want to do a comparison? What does the superintendent make in terms of salary? What is the TSA? If that's not a term you're familiar with, it's like the 403B or 403K equivalent.
Okay.
That's going to be enough for early in the process for a candidate to decide, do I want this job or do I not want this job?
Thanks for that clarification.
So how do we, or are we at a place now where we can say, okay, we do want to look at what the national comparables are, and we need to assign somebody to do that. So how do we begin that? If that's something that we want, do we say that now, or what do we have to do to get that process started? Because just looking at Oregon is not sufficient. We need to look at a national.
We say that now, and Roseanne can communicate that to Sandy, and
I would tell it to
Or
HR.
Liz can tell
I
it.
could tell HR, because
HR, yeah.
there's a running start on this work. They can at least update what we have, do another review of districts across the country. I think I recall some of them from the list, but that would be dangerous.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. No, I think if we could get that process going.
Yeah.
And then
I will send it tonight before we leave.
It sounded like this is not the goal of tonight's conversation, but I do want to put on the table, I think we need to build in time to have this very high level conversation about compensation and where we want to be. And I'll just say, because I'm honestly of 2 different minds. There's the part of me that says we have to be competitive. We're going to get the best superintendent out there. We got to look at what all these comparables are. And if they're paying for it, we know what the comparables are. It's $350,000 to $450,000 a year. And then if we want somebody, we got to pay them. But we also know that Oregon is a little different. And we also know that has been a huge lightning rod in our community.
Yeah.
I think there's a really important question, and it's kind of the same as, it's not the same, but it reminds me of the sort of transparency question, right? It's like, we may want to end up down at a lower end knowing that we will lose some top tier candidates who are going to say, oh, I make $350 right now. I'm not going to apply for a job that pays $250 or $300. And I think I want to make sure this board has some time for that, because, and I will tell you, because I can make an argument on both sides.
Yeah.
There's part of me that says, we need to do not just, because the reality is superintendents are an inflated market, because it is a very small pool of candidates, which is why it's an inflated market. It's going to be challenging. I'll pull an example. It will be challenging.
Before we do that, Director Scott, if I may, just because of the interest of time, this is on the agenda to discuss what the comp should be. And it actually is on that April 9th meeting. So I
know, Hank, let me just finish up, because I think it's an important point, and we did take an hour on scheduling, so I think this is more important. my point is that I think it's going to be really challenging. It's not just Oregon superintendents. We will be challenged if, say, we pay our superintendent $100,000 more than the new city manager of Portland, which I don't think we know what that compensation is going to be, but that'll raise questions. People will say, wait a minute, they're running an entire city versus running a school district. Like, what's the difference there? And if we want to go there, and we may, I just want to make sure we've got answers as to why we're paying so much. Because again, this is a lightning rod in our community, and I just, what I'm saying, Hank, is I want to spend the time in that meeting to talk about that.
The new city
Yeah.
manager be a lot less than a superintendent.
I want to give them 100,000.
225
I mean,
to
Actually, they haven't. No, I don't think they haven't said that.
they haven't said anything, but.
All right, so what's the next on the agenda item?
So if we look at, and actually, April, we had talked earlier about April 9th, which is now on your agenda as the date to adopt the next superintendent criteria. And we talked about that being maybe a shorter meeting. However, I am really glad we're having this conversation right now, because there's also an agenda item, and you'll see that on your timeline, to discuss the salary range. So April 9th is actually both of those things. And I would absolutely agree that you do want to have some ample time to discuss in public session exactly what you started to discuss tonight. So just we'll need to add a little piece of time, maybe not so little, but we'll want to make sure we have ample time on April 9th for that conversation as well.
Okay.
All right, Christy, what do you have next?
Okay, next item, the second round interview process can involve some community groups or community leaders, or like community-based interviews, could have some staff in there. So in other places during the second round, a candidate could meet with like 3 different panels, plus then go into their meeting with the board on their same day. And so every community is a little different, and you're going to want to think thoughtfully about that second interview process and where you'll bring in some other stakeholders. So what I'm wondering is if we could assign just a couple board members to work with us on what those second round interviews will look like, both the community side and thinking a little bit about the board at that point too. So I just need a couple board members for that.
Second round, so that's May 20. Is that for the May 28th, 30th, or around?
Yeah, that's for that week. So we have time to get that lined out, but I'd like to be able to, by the end of March, have a couple board members that we're working that through with. So they can give us feedback on what you want to see in that second round interview process and how many panels, all of that.
Well, I'm told somebody here.
All right, anybody want to?
Any volunteers?
Okay.
Volunteer myself.
Okay, so we got Director Eddie, and we got Director DePass. All right.
Director.
Very good, too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not just, I seen the.
Director Eddie.
No, I don't really.
I'm sorry.
And
Director, whatever you want.
I'm sorry.
Was it Eddie?
The other guy over there next.
just point
And
next time.
we got Eddie and we got Michelle.
Okay. We'll be in touch to get time on our calendars, and it won't be a rush.
All
Okay.
right.
Excellent.
My third thing is also pretty quick. We have the survey that we'll get ready to launch into the community that week of the 18th. And our plan is to do it in the 5 languages that you translate everything into. And we've been working with communications to start getting that started. So more an FYI, or let me know if this doesn't work, but it will be translated into Spanish, Vietnamese, Mandarin, Russian, and Somali are your top 5 languages. And as I understand it, that's the languages that you translate everything into. So as long as we follow the protocol that the district usually does, are you good to go?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds like a yes.
Okay, that was an easy one. Hank gave me the easy ones. And I'm going to ask for one more before you start the last big conversation. Number 4, determining a communications lead. Is that something you want to take on now too?
I actually have an update on that if helpful.
Oh, perfect.
Sandy asked me to relay that she is, through the communications budget, not this contract, going to use Hank's team to help with some of the specific communication content, given some of how stretched thin the communications team is. So she asked me to provide that update here. It's a very specific focus on helping with the communications content.
And Hank, who would you all use?
So we have a person on our team, Kelly Jenkins. Kelly used to be the Director of Communications for Redmond, Oregon School District. She currently supports us and also supports some public relations around levies for school districts.
There be some Portland filter?
Yes, I think it's worth providing content in conjunction, feeding it into the communications team, but just giving a specific assignment on this topic to this team. And then I assume Will and Valerie would run. I have very little more than what I just told you, so I'm not trying to be evasive. That's the information I know.
Did that add to the cost of the contract?
It would be additive to the district, but it'll come out of the communications budget because it's a supplement of a team that's pretty thin right now.
Okay.
It goes through the Keep Portland Weird filter. Comes out
You said that, not me.
appropriate for the other side.
Okay. Anything else?
That's what
Yeah, are we good on that? I
Yeah.
think we're actually, if we hit right now number 2, which I'd like to do, then we really only have a couple tiny ones that we can take care of, I think, relatively expediently.
Do the residency expectation.
Let's get to number 2.
Oh, that's a good.
Hurry up.
Let's do number 2. So number 2 is, and this might very well take us till 7:45, and we might, Chair Hollins, you might have to cut us off at 7:45 because I know that there are some thoughts on this. And this is the notion around to what extent, if at all, the board is intent on identifying publicly the names of your finalists, or to what extent the board is comfortable with those names not being announced in public space. And so I really want to sort of pick up where we left off. Obviously, there are arguments on both sides of that. Ultimately, the board's going to have to land on a decision around that. I don't know if we can wrap that up in the next 28 minutes, but I thought maybe we could try that.
Maybe we can wrap it up in a couple. Can I suggest something? So, and maybe it's a crazy thought, but like I find myself torn on this one. There are different opinions on the board, and I can see the arguments on both sides. And I don't usually like to punt hard decisions because I think we should make them as a board and then just go forward. But here's a way we can punt that I think might be effective. My question is, do we need to make the decision about the finalists today? If we are willing to ensure candidates confidentiality through the first stages of the process, can we and adhere to that? I mean that when we get down to that final 5 or 6, which I don't think we should release 5 or 6. For me, the question is, do we not release anything? Do we just essentially announce a candidate, or do we release the final 2 or 3 finalists? That to me is the 3. I know you had talked about 5 or 6, Gary, but my question is, when we get down to that point, we as a board can have that conversation again. And the reason why that might be effective is it's possible that our final 5 or 6, all of them say, oh yeah, if I become a finalist, you can release my name, that's fine. It's possible that 1 or 2 or 3 of them will say, actually, I'm not sure I would be comfortable with that. And we will then know and have that as not just a theoretical, we may lose candidates, but we will know that someone says, I'm not comfortable sacrificing that. If that's your plan, I'm going to withdraw. And we would allow them to withdraw without, obviously violating the confidentiality. So it just made me wonder if we, instead of thinking about, because I think we all agree, if we knew we were going to lose the best candidate by making it public, I think we would not. And if we knew that we would build a lot of trust and have a great process by making it public, we would do that. And this gives us a little bit of time to just wait to actually have candidates on the ground who can tell us pretty bluntly what they think.
Yeah.
Andrew's trying to run for mayor or something. He's trying to be so political right
But
now.
I completely agree with Andrew. I don't
It's
think
good.
It's not fair for people who have gone through the whole thing and at the end, and then at the end ask them, and then decide, no, we don't want you because you're not willing. They have to know from the start that we're either going to or not.
No, actually, I agree with Andrew because I think what we want to hand the recruiting team is like, here's the candidate we want. They're going to go find people who match the candidate. And I think then we need to decide, like, you know, if people may say, I don't want to.
Yeah, we have to say it right up front though, as soon as we get our.
No, I think you can wait.
I'm
I mean,
with the final three as well.
these people do it all the time.
Yeah,
And people exit out for
all
a
kinds
whole
of
host of other
reasons.
reasons.
Let everybody know that this is these.
I don't think it would be hiding it from them, Patty. I think we'd be, I think, and you know, Hank, you can weigh in on whether this would work or not. If they're saying, look, the board will assure your confidentiality up to the finalist stage, and at that, they haven't decided.
Oh, okay, if you've told them that.
Yeah, up to that stage.
Yeah.
And they said they haven't decided yet, and if you make it that far, you will have an opportunity to decide if, you know, the board will tell you what they want to do, and you'll have an opportunity to respond.
I'm not with 5 or 6. I was actually thinking more like the final 3 or something. You know what I mean? Like when we get down to like the final 3, that's when I was thinking. Like the 5 or 6, I think we're still dwindling it down. I think we're still trying to get down to somewhere. But when we get down to that last 3, that's when that was going to be my suggestion.
Yeah, so we're very clear with them, like when we get to the finalists, you have the opportunity to continue and we may decide to publish a name, or you can withdraw and keep your confidentiality.
Well, and I think what I'm actually saying is, and I want to be clear, if the majority of the board wants to release those finalist names, then we can make that decision today, right? Like I said, we don't need to punt. I'm more thinking, because of the difference of opinion, is there some value in waiting? Because again, there might be an incredible candidate who, you know, after we meet in that small session to talk about the 5 or 6, and we're like, we are interviewing this person. And Hank says, you know, I had a conversation with them, and if you're going to release the names, they are not comfortable with that. And it might change Gary's mind.
Yeah, I guess I'm interested in doing what it takes to get the highest qualified candidate. And if they're at the point of being a finalist, I would think that they might want to notify their board, maybe, hopefully, that they are a finalist, but not tell them. But I think it's important to maintain their confidentiality as long as we can, so we get the best candidate.
I don't think it's a bad punt.
And I think it's a great idea.
It's a good political punt. It's a good political punt. I think you're onto something.
Right, I haven't been looking at Hank, so I don't know whether he thinks it's crazy or not. So
He'll be all right.
I guess for me, and I hear what you're saying with that, right? I get it. I guess it just really depends on what transparency means to us, right? Like as a district, what do that mean when we talk about transparency? You know, like what Patty's saying, it's if they know up front that when we get down to the finalist piece, right, that the names will be released, at least they know. My mind is just trying to understand when we talk about transparency, what does that really mean to us? I'll be hard pressed for my words to be talking about transparency like we have been talking about for the last couple of years. I'm on the board, but then my action does something different. And then maybe that's just me, you know, I try to make sure that my words is backed up by my actions. And even though that we could lose out on a superintendent, I think we could gain a great superintendent as well. Like the coin flips on both sides on that, right? I'm okay with doing of course I was with the 5 or 6. I'm okay if we did at least the finalists, you know. But I think if we're really talking about our words matching our actions, we have to actually do the action. And it'd be hard and I understand the reasons why, and all that stuff. But also I don't, how do we, you know, when part of our deliverables was develop a transparent and open process to build the community's trust in the process. I don't see that. How do you guys do that?
Okay, so
that's in the deliverable, so that's in the contract.
I'm gonna answer what, in my mind, what transparency is. I mean, almost all of our personnel actions in this district, I mean, most of them aren't transparent. Like when we hire or fire principals, I mean, or teachers, it's not done publicly. So most of our personnel actions. So to me, a transparent process is we're including the community in the most important part of the process, which is defining what it is that we want. in a superintendent? What are the key competencies? And we're very open about that. And we're going to be open about what we're going to pay them and what the contract looks like. So it's not going to be like all of a sudden at the last minute there's a contract with a whole bunch of things in it that we're going to to me, an openness about the processes when they've defined the position description along with us, that we hire a candidate who matches that position description. And I mean, I'm trying to view, it's like, I don't think when you run for the board, there's like, the 5 main responsibilities. One of them is like hiring the superintendent. And so to me, it doesn't say we have to hire the superintendent, in this particular way. It's like, we need to hire the superintendent who's going to be the best person to lead PPS.
Is it possible to provide some transparency by releasing a bio rather than, a photograph and a name?
It's an interesting idea.
I think
So-
they send people
On the
They go
AI
find
boost,
out.
they'd put that right into
Yeah.
ChatGPT, and they'd be like, that person's coming from San
ChatGPT.
Francisco, and
Karen, can I ask, if you knew that we would lose 3 of the top candidates that would be really good for the district by adhering to those transparency values? Because I want to just be right up front. Your focus on the transparency values is one of the things that's changing my mind about this, because I think it's important. For me, it's that adhering to our values versus the potential actual impact on the search. And I'm hypothetically, if you knew that we would lose 3 top candidates, would you still want to do it? And just know we're settling for B-listers because we're adhering to our transparency values.
I think for me, it's like, oh, how do I answer this? It's kind of like, if you're asking me if I think because my values that I will not get the right candidate, I would have to say no. Like, because if I knew that we were going to lose candidates because of my values or the values of that we talk about, we would have to lose them, because I feel then we wouldn't have picked the best superintendent for us based on our values. You see what I'm saying? Like, if we saying our values is this, and almost look like as an integrity thing, right? And I'm not saying we're not integrity, not using integrity, but if my integrity is saying go this way, and I lose things on the way, I'll be okay with that because I know my integrity is intact, even if I lost things along the way. So, for instance, if I knew I can, sell drugs and make, $2 or $3 million a month, or I can use my integrity and go haul scrap metal, and make an honest living, I chose going to haul scrap metal.
And one more sort of non-hypothetical but real is just like I think it's okay that I bring this up, but because it was public. But
Yeah.
When Guadalupe was announced as a finalist for the LA job, that had a pretty negative impact on his reputation here in Portland. And there were just lots of people online, and it just became this, he's trying to, even though he'd been here for 5.5, 6 years at that point, he's a short-term, he never really was committed to this district. And I think that's what I'm afraid of, is that there are superintendents out there who just don't, again, it's because there are people in their community who will act like that.
Yeah.
Right? Which I don't think is the right thing to do. I mean, I don't for those people, but they will, right?
I wonder, so I hear what you're saying, Gary, and I really appreciate your just your honing to your values. But I was wondering about from the perspective of the candidate. The candidate also has values around how they want to show up and, when they want to notify their superiors, et cetera. And their reputation back in their home district that they need to maintain while they're also trying to better themselves by looking for, their next opportunity. So I'm just wondering if we can think about the candidate experience a little bit, not just our own experience, but what is the candidate experiencing, and also maybe try to look for transparency in other ways. I suggested a bio because, yes, you could type in someone's bio and probably find them on LinkedIn, but I was just wondering if it could be anonymized to the point where it's just years of experience, and something, you know, that they've done for their home district.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. Sorry. I'm glad you said, because I actually did think about it from the candidate's point of view as well. I was trying to think of it as a candidate. I'm like, if I'm a candidate, would, especially knowing how Portland is, would I want to go into a situation where I am, it might be perceived that it wasn't a transparent process? Would I want to come into a system like that? And that's why I did try to look at it as that as well.
Appreciate
Two
that.
things. One idea, I have one idea, because I like the idea of yours, because, you know, waiting as late as possible to see who we got. You know, what if we had, this is just an idea, like before they even start, you know, the first question on their application was, would you be okay with your name being released publicly? You know, yes or no. And if it's private, then we can make a decision later about if we want to keep this candidate or not. But at least we get to see like who we got, maybe. And then, you know, second question would be like, prove you're a human, choose all the crosswalks. And then,
Motorcycles.
yeah, the other issue I also want to bring in, because, you know, I'm with you, Gary. I think this is like, yeah, you gotta pick the high road. At the same time, I'm also like, yeah, take a point of view from the candidate. And I just want to say, like, knowing what Guadalupe went through as a person of color, imagine if we had a leader in a different city as a person of color or a woman, who are way more scrutinized about their leadership than most people. And so therefore, I think, again, like Director Silverstein kind of pointed out earlier, this represents a extra barrier, especially to a lot of our leaders of color or female, or people who identify as other non-cis categories.
If we did, if it was part of the questionnaire, this is, if you are found to be one of our last 3 finalists, and then put the question around that part. Like, I don't think, for me, I'm not talking about everybody. I'm really just trying to get down to like the ones that we're really serious about. I do believe that it could cause harm if we're not serious, if we're not really serious about you. Then yeah, I believe it could cause a level of harm. I think it would be an unintended consequence, in that that's not what we were intending to do, because we're looking to be extremely transparent. What we're really looking to show is that we're leading with our values and not leading with something else, right? We're not simply leading because we're trying to get whatever. No, we're leading with our values. And if that means that we lose something here, then that means that we lose something here. But what we're not going to sacrifice in the process are the values that we're building this system on. And so, and that's why I guess I wonder if we put it in the beginning that this is what we're considering. You know, this is what we're considering, that if you're found to be one of our our last finalists, that this is what our intention is. If you have an issue with this or a concern with this, please let us know ahead of time, right? Now what I feel like I'm doing is I'm actually giving them an opportunity to share with me as to, you know, I'd definitely be interested. I want this. And this is why. I think understanding the why someone might say, please don't introduce me, or might help me make a decision, versus me left to my own. Because when I'm left to my own devices, I think evil, you're a liar, you're trying to hide, you're trying to cheat me. Not really, but you know, someone could argue that. And I think giving them an opportunity to explain their why around it might also show that we're concerned about how what we're considering doing might impact them, and we want that input before we make a final decision.
I like that a lot.
So,
And we are. I've already gotten some emails around the transparency from community members of the process for our superintendent search.
Mm.
So it's already out. At least some people, it's already out there for some folks.
So I'm going to say, having participated in not just superintendent recruitments, but also executive level recruitment, often the people who don't want to be public or have their reference checks with their current employees are employer are people who are women who are the primary support for their families and the jeopardizing. And I do think, and maybe that you can get to that why.
And that's what I would be
in
hoping
that
for.
question. And then it becomes somewhat subjective, like, okay, if this person isn't this whole, person, like, we're going to make them be public. I just think there's a lot of reasons, and it's not because people are not wanting to be transparent. It's just most employment processes are not by their nature public. I'd like to ask Hank what you think the impact of the process would be on the pool.
If
If we have a public process with multiple candidates versus like a finalist.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I feel confident that there are a number of sitting superintendents who would immediately say no. Your question is different than what Director Scott was thinking. He might want to ask me, which is about his maybe hybrid.
I can answer that too. How about answering?
So I can speak to that too, but why don't I speak to yours first? I mean, there are individuals that we want to reach out to, and we will reach out to either way, but we would like to reach out to, and we think that there is a decent chance that they would apply for PPS if their names were not relisted. And these are people who are sitting in superintendencies, or I can think, for instance, of 2 state superintendents of instruction that for different reasons might be interested in moving to Portland. I can't imagine that a state superintendent of instruction, I mean, can you imagine a state superintendent of instruction putting their name in the newspaper as a potential finalist for Portland Public and then having to return to a state where they are superintendent of? And again, I can't guarantee who's going to, I mean, none of us can, who's going to say yes or no, but all I can say is from our collective experience, it is the first question or one of the very first questions that sitting superintendents ask. And so I think it would, if you are looking for somebody who's an experienced superintendent coming to PPS, I think it will significantly injure the pool. If that's not a high priority, and I'm not saying it necessarily has to be, your last at least 2 superintendents were not sitting superintendents, it's a little less risky. If you're sitting in a deputy superintendent role, it's less risky. And so I don't know that would be a huge turnoff for a deputy. It could be, but not to the same level. I know that you'll have interest from folks who have been superintendents, but are currently not sitting superintendents. So maybe they, left their board or their board, whatever, but they're currently, that's a very different situation than someone who is sitting in the chair. So I would say I have a lot of confidence. Maybe that's the wrong, I have confidence that folks will opt out of applying for Portland Public if that's the decision. So that would be the answer. I mean, and I think, and I might have shared this last time, I think if you look at particularly large district searches that have been public over the last year, most of the time the finalists are not sitting superintendents. You might see people in the mix that were superintendents or maybe superintendents of small districts or superintendents who don't have a lot to lose. But for the most part, if you search recent large district superintendents where there's an open public showing of finalists, you're going to see a whole lot of deputy superintendents and chiefs of staff and a very small number of sitting superintendents. So that's how I'd answer your question. I think if I've been invited to sort of respond to the earlier hybrid, I mean, I think it's really interesting notion, Director Scott, and we learn something new in every single search. And I wouldn't ever want us to come to a board and say, no, there's only one way to do it. So I think there's some possibilities there. I think there's some cautions there. Could it work? Maybe. I mean, maybe it could work where you don't make the decision until very late in the process. There's a couple of things that I would caution us about. One is you might have folks say, well, why am I going to put I mean, it takes a lot of energy to apply for a role. And to know that you might go all the way through it, and at the very end, the board's going to say, yeah, well, we've thought about it, but we've decided to go public. I mean, that doesn't feel particularly good, and that could cause somebody to opt out. I don't know. We've never done it before, so I'm just hypothesizing. I would worry also, and I don't know if this would play out, but what if you had 3 finalists, and what if all 3 of them said, no way, So then what are you going to do? Or maybe at that moment you would decide that you're going to not go public because you don't want to lose all of your finalists. There's a statutory piece, and I mean, if this is the direction you want to go, I'd want to work with Liz to get a legal guidance, because typically you make your decisions around process in public space, not an executive session. So and maybe that's just a granular piece, but we'd have to figure out where you make that decision, because I don't know that you could make such a decision in an executive session meeting. So could it be done? Maybe. And could it actually thread the needle that we're trying to do? Maybe. So I think it's an interesting creative notion, and I'd also want to give it a little more thought. And I might actually, since I don't need to be the one doing all the talking, I might ask Hector and Christy if you had answers to either of those questions as well.
Say, I have a question for Gary. So how do you see it as more transparent, having the three people, or let's say we have three at the end, who are talking? I guess you want the public to hear them give presentations. Then we're talking to them, and we talk amongst ourselves about the different qualities that we're looking for. So it sounds to me like the board's being transparent, is that right? So we'll be discussing, are we in front of the public when we discuss who we want for?
No.
We're not at all. We're never talking.
You're in executive session.
Okay, so we never talk.
The only time, based
Okay.
on the way Hank, as I understand it, the way that Hank has outlined it, is the only time that we would release a name is after we have already decided that this is who we're going to go with. So then the public doesn't, Joe Public or Susie Public doesn't know anything about who we were interviewing or any of those things. All they know is the last thing that they were a part of, if I'm understanding this correctly, the last thing that they were actually a part of were the surveys and the search criteria. After that, the board is doing the work of doing the interviews, and then we can't talk about it to the people. We can't share information around who we've interviewed, what we liked about it or what we didn't like. We have to keep all that close to the breast, close to our chest or whatever. And then we get all the way through, we wind all the way down. So now we go from 10 to 6 to 5 to 3 to 2 to 1. And then this whole process from a community perspective has been done in a vacuum behind closed doors. I don't know what y'all were doing in there. All I know is that I gave y'all some criteria, and I'm hoping that y'all were doing it. And so then we come out and say, this is who we've decided to go with. This is who we're selecting. And it was a trying interview process. It took us a lot to get down to this one, but this is who it is. And from a community perspective, they were like, wait a minute. When did y'all start interviewing? The last I heard, we were just talking about the criteria. Who came in? What was the other person?
I can tell you, so for example, we had every 2 weeks we provided updates. We had, 35 applicants. They were from, more than 6 different states. They were national and local. They were from large districts, small districts. They were from, traditional superintendent candidates, and there were some non-traditional. So you give them the scope, and as you move along, you can still provide a sense of where you are in the process. We're still trying to find that person that matches the position description. I guess from my viewpoint is I feel like we got elected to do this job. We tell them
Interested.
that they're helping set the criteria. But so say if we said, here are the 3 people we interviewed, I'm still gonna pick the person that matches the criteria. I'm gonna use my judgment, based on a whole host of information, not just the interviews, on who's the best match. But I'm not going to be hey, the crowd is telling me I should go with
No, I don't think I'm saying that at all.
Well, I think I want to. What you said was I think the root of the argument too is also what is the value of the transparency, right? For example, if they get to see everything that happens, does it actually really matter in the end because, A, like you said before, we were elected to pick the superintendent. That was one of our main jobs that the public voted us to do, whether they wanted to or not. But that's a different argument. But at the same time, like, what is the value of the transparency, right? Like, if I'm Joe Public, Jane Public, something public, and I get to see what happens, does it make a difference? Because it's not like I can really, I can send some public comment in, I can email the board, but it's not really going to change the outcome. Right?
I think
So
about
we
it
can-
like the black parent.
But the
Like,
thing
you
is,
don't
we
have
can use that
input
same logic with
100%
the
of the time.
budget too. Like, we're elected to do the budget, but yet we have public comment for the budget. We go through a whole series. Well, I would argue that same value that is added going through our budget cycle, we are elected to do, we was entrusted to do, that's one of our main jobs to do. That same value, I think we get with this as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, and for the budget, we should be absolutely 100% transparent.
But why should,
But money,
why should one,
the dollars don't have feelings attached to them.
they
You're like,
don't?
we're
Are you
talking
gonna send the
about-
emails?
Repercussions of
like,
No, I was laughing. I thought it was a good.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but have you seen some of these emails?
Bada ba boom. His eyes.
yeah, because I mean,
Because
like
it's
we're
a whole
talking
lot.
about human beings and their
I hear
potential
you.
careers, and that's where.
I hear you.
And like again, I am trying to be agnostic here because I don't either way we go is fine with me. But I'm just saying like that's where my concern is with the individuals and their careers. But I don't know. That's just my question. It's like the fundamental question is what is the value of this part of the transparency?
Right.
I mean, for the budget thing, that's a good question. We should talk about that more. But that's a different. I think that's a longer, different discussion.
Okay. Okay.
Well, we said this one was gonna go all the way to 7:45,
Is it 7:40?
and it did.
It's 7:46.
It did. It went all the way, and I thought we was gonna have time.
Well, and I'm gonna just put that out there for me, and I might have to break away from the rest of the board or not. It's gonna be hard for me to talk about transparency, and my actions is different. And however that looks, it's gonna be hard for me to do that. So, for instance, as an example, if someone asked me, we got down to the final three, and somebody asked me who is it, it'd be hard for me just to be like, oh, can't say nothing. That's gonna be hard for me. And I don't know if, and I don't know if I will do that because my value is my value.
The thing is, we can't go into this having everybody have their own value. I mean, I think that's a total deal killer. I
Hey,
mean,
I hear you.
But I mean,
generally, we sign non-disclosure agreements for candidates. I mean, so that you're not going to expose people. But I don't think we can ask our recruitment team to be like, hey, everybody's going to make up their own standard of whether they release your name or not.
Then some
Yeah.
people would be calling the media and some people might not.
see, this is why I was asking if it was possible maybe on the first question would be like, would you like your name to get kept private? Because then if they said no, then you can be like, oh yeah, I can talk about this candidate. But this candidate, then now if they ask about the other candidates, I can say, well, this candidate asked to be private, so I'm respecting, their privacy wishes. Just like, for example, when we talk about like candidates that, when we're terminating candidates and some of them say they don't want their names to be released, we respect that, right? It goes the other way too. So I don't know, I defer to, I would like to do what the candidate wishes. So, this is such a long process. It's a difficult process. It's risky for some people. It's not risky for others.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has a different story. And like Herman, what you said before, that really spoke to me is like, they can explain the why and we get to learn from that. And that appeals to me probably more than anything else right here. So.
But then if we have three candidates, two said they're fine talking, and we decide when we finally vote that we're going to vote on the one that didn't want to go public, then everybody's going to say, oh, well, you weren't transparent. Why did you vote for the person? So I think
That's
we'd be
another
in trouble.
consideration. Yeah, it's true.
I think we have to go one way or the other.
Yeah, either way, we're pissing someone.
We can't have our
Can I add one little piece of information too that might help? It's Eddie and Michelle who are going to help design that second round interview process. And within that second round interview process, you can have some community-based panels where you have some teachers, some CBO execs, you put them into a lottery, some administrators. You can go through whatever categories you want, and then a candidate can interview with those 3 panels. And those panels sign confidentiality agreements. But the way you demonstrate your transparency is you're bringing in a group of people to help you with the process, and then you're getting the feedback. So that's one little piece you haven't talked about. You can go to that racial justice partners group and ask for 2 people from that goes, so you can get some more community into that second round process. And that's part of what that working group is going to work on. So just another little bit of information for you.
So Christy, I was invited to one of those panels for a director level at the city, and it was kind of a lottery system, but maybe that's a way also all of our board members could suggest a couple people. So that way, everybody's got their people in the room. And of those people, there's a smaller subset, or that's a panel.
Yeah, you can decide how you want to, that's your decision to decide how you want to populate those panels. And every district does it a little differently. And the experience we've had is that those people, when they sign that confidentiality agreement, it's been rock solid on keeping it confidential. But it's another way to demonstrate you've brought in your community to help you with the decision, because then you're taking their feedback. Then they see every candidate. Every candidate has the same prompt. It gives it a fair, a level playing field for the candidates too, versus some of the public forums when they're just all peppered with different questions. So something else to think about.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that piece where there are community people who interview.
And I might add, the other piece of that is that through your communications, you're widely announcing and publicizing that as a part of the process, so that your public knows that these 12 or 24 or 36 people, you may or may not name names, but if you're routinely informing your public, this is the next step of the process, and we're going to be building community panels, and this is how the panels will be pulled. Usually there's at least some element of lottery in those panels so that everybody in the community at least could potentially have their name pulled out of a hat. That does buy an awful lot of goodwill in terms of community thinking like, oh, okay, it's not just 7 members of the board behind closed doors making a decision. I would agree, you don't want your public thinking that, but that's not actually how it happens. It happens through a narrower number, but nonetheless, a group of community members who hopefully are a microcosm of your community, doing the deep dive, doing the interviews, as Christy said, signing their confidentiality affidavits, but publicizing that so that your public knows this is the process.
And that's a level of transparency in the process, which I think is great. I'm going to add also, like those community panels, we're also very clearly told that you're not making the decision. You're helping to inform the process, but not making a decision. So that's also being transparent in terms of how any community member's input would be utilized or not.
All right. Any other questions, thoughts?
That's not a question.
That's not a question. Any other thoughts?
Oh, nice.
Processes, thoughts? It's about 8 o'clock, so.
Are we not going to decide later? I guess that's my question.
Oh, yeah, where'd we land? Maybe they're just.
Are you guys looking for direction today?
Well, it doesn't sound like we'll get there before 8, so I'm going to recommend, Director Hollings, can we work on having yet one more planning meeting where we finalize this as well as just 2 or 3 agenda items we didn't get to tonight?
There was three more. Yeah.
And you guys gonna do another planning meeting?
The other ones were easy, weren't they?
Or you want to try to just get through them tonight?
We can do scheduling again?
No,
Then we're gonna be here till 9.
no, Andrew. Nobody's doing scheduling again,
So do you
Andrew.
want to just guys go through the
Or
other?
we could
Yeah,
come
let's
to a
finish it.
decision
Hold on.
tonight.
Do you guys just want to go through the other? Well, I said what I said, so I'm standing on what I said. So y'all can do what you guys want to do with that. But as far as the other topics, do you guys want to try to get them good through there tonight?
Let's do the residency one, see if that's easy.
All right, come on, let's go to the residency one. Let's see if that's easy.
If it's easy.
If it's easy.
Christy, that's you, right?
Oh, that's me. Sorry. I was going back to you, Hank. Okay, so one thing you want to think about is, are you going to require your superintendent to live within the boundaries of Portland Public Schools? Are you going to want them to live within Multnomah County or within a certain distance of Portland Public? So that's, again, something that people are interested in when candidates are applying, and something we'll want to start talking to people about. So we're anxious to hear your thoughts around the superintendent moving within your district boundaries.
So do you guys have a preference on in the boundaries or within the city of Portland?
There was a lot of contentious around where Guadalupe lived.
It was in
And
his
so I
contract, and it was actually in his contract that he had to live within the PPS boundaries, and he did.
And he did.
Well,
Yeah,
yes,
always
but
did,
people
but-
were so angry because his family wasn't here. I mean,
But
there
I
was
No, but
so
they were
much-
angry
so
when
much-
they were angry at him when
It's
it's.
grown kids.
I want to be really clear.
Grown
His
kids.
grown children.
Yeah.
I
But
know.
let's not defend the
There was
public,
there
the
was
toxic
I know,
public.
it's not
relations.
Yeah.
How awful they
There
were.
was a high school
yeah.
student in the mix, but
Okay, so
Yeah,
do
there
we
was
do we
one
want them to live
right
within Monoma County, Portland Public School boundaries or within
yes,
the city of Portland?
yes, I think that signifies a lot if they're, living in Beaverton, and yeah, I think they
They're
need to
paying
live.
our taxes.
And
Yeah.
the shorter commute they have, more hours they can devote to work.
Now, that's how I pitch it.
That's the
I don't
pitch.
really care where they live at, so.
I think they
Paying
need.
our taxes, we just bumped up the salary.
Yeah.
'Cause
Board, if I may,
Let's
one
not go
thing,
there,
Alright.
Metro.
What's that, Hank?
one thing you might want to consider, and I know sometimes it's hard to do this in the abstract when you don't know the candidates, but really you're giving talking points to the three of us about what to say to candidates. But one thing to consider is, let's hypothetically say you have a really strong candidate who lives in Gresham. Does that person, it's less of an issue really if somebody's moving into Portland from another city, because they probably will land in the jurisdiction. But what if they live in Gresham, their kids go to high school in Gresham or Beaverton or Tigard? That's really often where it becomes more of an issue is, okay, do I need to sell my house and
What it-
move?
Hey,
I don't care where they, as
if they
long as
live
they
in
can do the job,
Vancouver,
it don't matter where they live at to me.
I think
Somebody's
it
gonna be
does
mad at them,
matter.
Whatever they do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'll
think
let
it
y'all
matters.
figure that
I
out.
think it matters that they live in the district.
as long as I don't think I
Probably
want to
expand
be
it to
out of
Multnomah
state
County.
unless it's Vancouver, because
You can
Vancouver
have
is
find a
like
great house in
going next door.
Yeah, but if you already have a nice house in St. Gresham.
You
Okay,
have kids
so
in school.
only under the circumstances that Hanks said would I maybe consider it. But like to say, I mean, we ask a lot of our community in the way of taxes, and to say like, I think it creates just something different, like, hey, you're proposing all these things and spending this money, but you've chosen not to live within the PPS boundaries.
As long as it ain't like the
vote.
Portland did, because they had a guy that was supposed to be running an office and was living out of Vegas.
There
And
was another one in
so
Hawaii.
as long as
Okay,
they not doing
let's
that,
bring it back to Portland.
I think I'm trying. I'm
Okay.
trying. Don't let them live in Vegas.
Okay,
They
okay,
can't,
okay.
they can't do that. I'm not okay with that one.
Do we have a census on if they live within PPS boundaries or city of Portland? Do we have a preference?
Within a half-hour drive.
As long as they're 90 minutes from Cannon Beach and about an hour from Mount Hood, I'm good.
I say within PPS.
This side of the.
Okay, so we got one for within
Unless
PPS.
we have a suburban, unless we choose somebody who already has like a house in a surrounding district, which is different than like, I'm gonna move from another state and move to Gresham.
Okay, so we have one for within the boundaries of PPS.
PPS with potential flexibility for local candidates. That's what
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I like that,
I would
yeah.
agree with that. PPS with flexibility for local.
All right, everybody agree with that? All right,
Sounds
so
good.
within PPS boundaries.
Political Andrew at it again.
Let me give them the direction. So
Thank you, Andrew.
they're gonna live within PPS boundaries with the caveat if we choose someone who lives in the surrounding areas.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
The property taxes is high.
No, selling your house right now?
Yeah.
Somebody do that?
7%.
Yeah. Okay. You got
What was the other one?
You think we get through another one real quick?
I bet we can. You wanna
Okay,
try?
go.
This is you, Hank.
We have we have an advertising budget for you. As in your RFP initially, you asked for nationwide search and also advertisements that were mindful of communities that you want to make sure that we attract. And so I have a advertising budget. I would love for you to just nod and say okay, and I can let me just walk you through it. And I think I can do that.
Money is no
Okay,
object.
how much?
You just want to know the dollar figure?
Yep.
$1,600.
Who are you
Hold on.
Wait,
Is
that's the whole
$1,600 okay?
$1,600, that's
1,600.
enough?
Is
Is that enough?
Is that
That's like, is that like Ed Week and then some?
that, the question is that enough?
Yeah, it really is.
it?
We have a really strong reach that doesn't even cost you anything. And then on top of that, we think it makes sense in Education Week or the other one we do typically instead of Education Week, we do AASA, but they're very similar readings.
Talk him out of it. 1,600 is fine. Don't.
Hold on. So
Do everything.
It sounds like everybody is okay with at least $1,600.
Okay, great. Sounds like you don't want me to go through the detail, and that's
Hank, can you
Hold
just
on.
tell me who you're, I'd like to know who they're advertising.
Oh yeah, no. I was just letting them know that you'll ask another question.
okay. Here's the budget. AASA, which is the Superintendent's Association, $1,000, $1,050, which includes an ad and also a push out. ALAS, which is the Association of Latino Administrators, for $250, which includes a push out. NAPI, which is the Association of Black Superintendents and Educators, for $300. They don't have a push out option. We would, of course, advertise it in COSA in Oregon at no cost and in Washington for no cost on the Washington superintendent site. In addition to that, you get our listserv, which is part of your package anyway. There's no cost to you for that, which goes out to 40,000 plus education stakeholders around the country and a few other around our country, around the country. Yeah.
All right.
That's what we're recommending.
How do we get on your mailing list?
All right.
You can just go to our website, go to Human Capital Enterprises and scroll to sort of the bottom of the page and it'll say sign up for our newsletter.
Okay. Any other agenda items we can knock out real quick? We good?
No, great. So we only got the one last one that we'll land on next time we meet, hopefully.
Sounds good.
We'll have it.
All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, board.
Thank you.
Bye.